Hello, folks. Welcome. There's been a lot of talk online about the whole thing with the motor trend developments.
What really happened to Ian Roussel from Full Custom Garage? Here's the truth. Every year, more than 20 million viewers tune into car shows hoping to see creativity at work. But behind the sparks and chrome, few know the real cost. In the Mojave Desert, under 115 degrees heat, Ian Roussel nearly lost himself until he chose freedom over fame. They call him America's most unique custom car builder. Ian Roussel isn't just a mechanic. He's an artist who turned steel into soul. From a one-man garage to becoming the face of Discovery's Full Custom Garage, Ian's journey is more than horsepower and chrome. It's about passion versus pressure, freedom versus burnout. Stay with me, because this isn't just a story of cars. It's a story of resilience, risk, and rebirth. By the early 1990s, the custom car world was at a crossroads. Traditional hot rods still had their loyalists, but new builders were beginning to push boundaries, blending street culture with classic craftsmanship. Into this world stepped Ian Roussel, a young builder with more imagination than resources and a hunger that wouldn't quit. Apprenticeship was his first proving ground. Ian found himself working alongside some of the most respected names in the industry. Boyd Coddington, the master of polished billet artistry, and Jesse James, whose outlaw metalwork gave rise to an entire chopper movement. These environments could easily crush a young builder, but for Ian, they lit a fire. He absorbed the precision of Boyd's design language and the raw, rebellious spirit of Jesse's fabrication. It was a dual education, discipline and defiance. By the age of 22, Ian was ready to take a gamble. He opened his own shop, a modest space filled not with brand new equipment, but with salvaged tools, secondhand welders, and endless ambition. He wasn't chasing clients who wanted another polished 32 Ford clone. He sought out the misfits, projects that others dismissed as impossible, impractical, or simply insane. A rusted-out Studebaker, a 40s pickup held together by hope. To Ian, they were blank canvases waiting for new life. That risk began to pay dividends. One defining moment came in Las Vegas during a low-profile car meet, where Ian unveiled what many consider Frankenstein's monster, a radical rat rod pieced together from parts most builders would have left in the junkyard. Its chopped roofline, exposed welds, and aggressive stance defied conventional aesthetics. Some purists scoffed, but others leaned in closer, fascinated. That car caught the attention of documentary filmmakers covering underground automotive culture. Suddenly, Ian's work wasn't confined to dusty garages and word-of-mouth chatter. He was on screen, his builds carrying the raw honesty of someone unafraid to get his hands dirty and his vision criticized. The Las Vegas Rat Rod wasn't just a car, it was a manifesto. Recognition followed. Ian broke into the Cadis Report Top 10 Builders list, a ranking that highlighted not just technical ability, but also influence within the culture. For a builder who once carved a Ford grill out of foam in his childhood bedroom, this was validation on a global stage. Soon, his creations weren't just circulating through the American custom scene. Collectors and enthusiasts from Japan, Germany, and the Netherlands began placing orders. Each international build presented new challenges. Japanese buyers prized minimalism and precision. German collectors demanded engineering excellence. Dutch enthusiasts leaned toward eccentric artistry. Ian embraced these differences, tailoring his work while never compromising his identity. What tied it all together was originality. No two cars looked remotely the same, and none could ever be replicated. The core of Ian's rise was risk. He didn't choose safe builds or follow predictable trends. He staked his reputation on originality, proving that in custom culture, being authentic was far more valuable than being polished. By the early 2010s, television was flooded with automotive reality shows. Yet many of them leaned more on scripted drama than on genuine craftsmanship. Viewers were growing tired of manufactured rivalries and countdown clocks that had little to do with real fabrication. This was the environment into which Ian Roussel stepped in 2014 with Full Custom Garage, a MAV-TV original that promised and delivered something different. From a very first episode, the tone was raw and unfiltered. Viewers weren't watching staged conflicts. They were watching Ian take on actual builds in real time. The camera followed him through the grease, the sparks, the inevitable setbacks, and the moments of triumph. Unlike the glossy polish of other shows, Full Custom Garage leaned into the imperfections. Ian wasn't afraid to show when a weld didn't hold, when a part didn't fit, or when an idea had to be scrapped entirely. That honesty struck a chord. The builds themselves became icons. One early highlight was a chopper trike, a three-wheel beast that merged motorcycle rebellion with hot rod aesthetics. Next came the Packard lead sled, a heavy 50s classic reshaped into a low-slung, elegant cruiser with flowing lines that redefined what a Packard could be. Then there was the electric dune buggy, a futuristic experiment that proved Ian wasn't stuck in nostalgia. He was willing to merge sustainability with style. Perhaps most jaw-dropping of all was the mobile workshop bus, a rolling fabrication studio that symbolized freedom, the ability to create anywhere, anytime. Each of these builds carried Ian's signature, daring, original, and unafraid to challenge conventions. For viewers, it wasn't just entertainment. It was a masterclass in creativity, problem-solving, and persistence. As the show gained momentum, so did its audience. What began as a niche program on MAVTV quickly grew into a global fan base. Enthusiasts in Europe, Asia, and South America tuned in, drawn by Ian's authenticity. Social media amplified this reach, with fans posting sketches of their own dream builds, tagging Ian and thanking him for inspiring them to get into their garages. The show became not just a platform for Ian, but a movement that reignited passion in grassroots builders everywhere. But this visibility came at a cost. Television demanded long hours, tight schedules, and constant pressure to top the last build. For a craftsman who had once worked at his own pace, chasing inspiration wherever it led, the production grind sometimes felt suffocating. Ian himself admitted in interviews that while Full Custom Garage gave him a platform like no other, it also pulled him away from the solitude of creation that he cherished. The duality of the show mirrored Ian's career. On one hand, it elevated him into a household name within the custom world, ensuring his work would be seen and celebrated far beyond the confines of small garages and regional meets. On the other, it reminded him that true craftsmanship is often a private dialogue between builder and machine, something cameras can only partially capture. Through it all, Ian remained committed to his core principle: build what excites you, not what sells. That ethos, laid bare on screens around the world, turned Full Custom Garage into more than just another car show. It became a testament to authenticity in an era where so much was manufactured. Long before cameras rolled or rat rods rumbled down Vegas boulevards, the story of Ian Roussel began in the quiet community of Sunland, California. Nestled against the San Gabriel Mountains, Sunland was not known as a hub of innovation or industry, but for Ian, it was fertile ground. The wide streets and neighborhood garages formed the backdrop of a childhood that revolved around imagination and machinery. Much of that spark came from home. Ian's father was no stranger to tools and tinkering, and his workshop became the boys' playground. It wasn't filled with shiny new equipment, but rather with the kind of tools that carried history: wrenches marked with grease, a battered welder from Lockheed, and bins of spare parts waiting for a second life. While other kids were racing bikes or playing video games, Ian was leaning over workbenches, watching his dad bring machines back from the brink. The centerpiece of those years was a family project, a 1955 Chevy Nomad. It wasn't just a car, it was an education. Ian observed how patience, precision, and persistence could turn a faded relic into something roadworthy. For a boy still figuring out who he was, that Nomad became a classroom. The smell of oil, the clang of tools, and the satisfaction of seeing metal transformed. Those experiences carved deep impressions that would shape his identity. But Ian's curiosity couldn't be contained by what was already in the shop. From a young age, he was experimenting with his own ideas, some raw, some unconventional. One of his earliest self-driven projects was carving the grill of Ford out of foam, an audacious experiment that may have looked crude but revealed a mind already thinking beyond limitations. While most kids submitted sketches or paintings in art class, Ian turned in rolling clay models, cars that he sculpted with his hands and imagination. Teachers might not have known what to make of them, but his peers did. This was a kid obsessed with turning ideas into wheels. By his teenage years, Ian had already moved from models to machines. His first real build, a Model A pickup, was a patchwork of parts, persistence, and vision. It wasn't perfect, but it carried his signature, a refusal to play safe. That build didn't stay hidden in a backyard garage, either. It caught the eye of Rod and Custom Magazine, one of the most respected publications in the hot rod community. To see his work featured in its glossy pages was more than validation. It was a signal that this young builder from Sunland had something unique to offer. What made those early years extraordinary wasn't just talent. It was raw curiosity, the willingness to try, fail, and try again. Ian wasn't afraid to scrap a project or start from scratch, because every misstep taught him something new. That cycle of experimentation would become the core of his identity as a builder. No wasted effort, no wasted ideas. Family, too, played a critical role. While his father provided the tools and the atmosphere of a working shop, his mother encouraged creativity in broader strokes. She valued imagination and expression, ensuring that Ian never felt bound by traditional definitions of art. To her, a clay car model was as worthy as a painting or sculpture. That balance, mechanical grounding from his father and creative freedom from his mother, gave Ian both roots and wings. The California environment added its own seasoning. Sunland was close enough to Los Angeles to feel the pulse of West Coast car culture, where lowriders cruised Whittier Boulevard and hot rods gathered in weekend meets. The mix of Mexican lowrider artistry, surf culture, and classic Americana seeped into Ian's young imagination. He wasn't just influenced by one stream of automotive style. He was swimming in a cultural ocean that celebrated boldness, individuality, and reinvention. Looking back, those sparks were less about cars and more about creativity itself. Whether he was shaping foam into a Ford grill, rolling clay into dream machines, or wrenching on the Nomad, Ian was developing the one quality that would define his future: the courage to build what others only imagined. The seeds planted in that Sunland workshop would later grow into a career that defied convention. But even as the world would come to know him as a master fabricator, Ian himself would often point back to those early days, to the grease-stained tools of Lockheed, to the family garage filled with potential, and to the restless curiosity of a boy who believed anything he could imagine could one day roll on four wheels. As Ian Roussel's reputation grew beyond television, his story became more than just one man's journey through steel and sparks. He represented something bigger: the survival of hands-on craftsmanship in a digital age. Where so much of the modern world drifted toward automation and convenience, Ian remained firmly rooted in the philosophy that greatness comes from struggle, failure, and the willingness to keep going when others quit. His builds, whether rat rods born from junkyard scraps or futuristic experiments with electric powertrains, carried the same DNA: authenticity. Fans admired the radical shapes, the roaring engines, and the wild paint jobs, but what truly kept them watching was honesty. Ian never tried to pretend that building was easy. He let the world see the setbacks, the broken welds, the long nights, and the stubborn moments when metal refused to bend. That transparency resonated with people far outside the car community. It was a universal language of persistence. Over the years, Ian also became a bridge between generations. Older hot rodders saw in him the grit and individuality that defined the 1950s and 60s, while younger fans found inspiration in his willingness to experiment with unconventional designs and new technology. Social media only amplified this connection. Clips of his builds spread across Instagram and YouTube, inspiring young mechanics, artists, and even complete beginners who had never held a welder before. Internationally, his influence deepened. In Japan, his cars were celebrated as rebellious art pieces. In Germany, builders admired the engineering hidden within his wild exteriors. In the Netherlands, fans embraced his humor and humility as much as his creations. Wherever his work traveled, it carried a message: originality still matters. But Ian himself remained grounded. Despite fame, he continued to prefer the solitude of the garage over the spotlight. Interviews often revealed a man who valued the process more than the product, who believed that the true reward was not applause, but the satisfaction of creating something that had never existed before. That is the enduring lesson of Ian Roussel. His career is not simply a catalog of custom cars. It's proof that curiosity, risk, and authenticity can still carve a path in a world that often rewards conformity. His story reminds us that when you stay true to your vision, you're not just building machines, you're building a legacy. And that's the story of Ian Roussel, an artist, a craftsman, and a rebel who turned raw metal into rolling dreams. What do you think of his journey? Which of his builds inspired you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Beyond the cars, Ian's journey also highlighted the importance of mentorship and community. He often credited his breakthroughs not just to personal grit, but to the countless builders, painters, and welders who shared knowledge along the way. In turn, he became that mentor for others, answering questions from aspiring fabricators online, offering tips, and reminding people that skill is built through persistence, not shortcuts. His openness created a ripple effect. Garages around the world where young builders dare to try, fail, and try again, all because they saw someone who never hid the struggle behind the shine. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of creators, builders, and legends who shape culture with their hands and imagination. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a story worth telling.